Hi guys. I hope everyone's having a good day today. Let's get started now. I'm gonna share my screen. It's the wrong one. Can you guys see my screen all right? You guys can type in the chat if you want. Good. Okay. So this is class 4 of our beginner curriculum. And today's class is going to be about tactics and counting material. I am Eric Liu, and here's my About Me page. I played chess since I was 8 years old, and I've played chess for almost 8 years. So I'm 16 years old. And I'm an international master. And I have a lot of tournament accomplishments. And our teaching assistant today is Vincent. Vincent, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. My name is Vincent Gao. I'm in eighth grade, and although I don't have as many accomplishments as him, I'll be your TA today.
Yeah, that's okay. It's all good. So, so that was a quick introduction. So before we get into what we're gonna learn today, let's do a little review. So, what were the three opening rules that we learned last class? You guys can type in the chat if you know. I know it takes a long time to type, so take your time. Okay, I've seen a lot of different opening rules, which are all good rules. So, three of the opening rules that we learned last week were to control the center. That means to have your chess pieces attacking the central squares, the four central squares. And our and another opening rule is to develop your pieces. And that means your minor pieces, which are the bishop and the knight. And that's important so that you can castle early. And castling early is important because it develops your rook and it gets your king to safety. So you always want to make sure that you do these three opening rules. And someone else said don't send the queen out too early. That's also a good rule. I agree with that one as well. So, for controlling the center, what are three common first moves that white can play that helps control the center? Because white has 20 legal moves in the starting position, but there are only three or four of them that are actually good. Yeah, pawn d4 is one of them. Pawn e4 is another one. Then what's a third good move? We can also develop our knight on move 1. So which knight do we develop? Yeah, knight f3. So the three most common first moves are pawn to e4, pawn to d4, and knight to f3. And there's also a fourth common first move that's also good, and it's pawn to c4. So those are the four good moves for white. And we also want to develop our pieces in the opening. So in general, which pieces should we develop first? Which pieces? Yeah, the pawn is a good piece. But what about some of the heavier pieces? Yeah, knights. Knights are heavy, bishops are heavy. Yeah, knights and bishops. Those are important to develop. Rooks are not as important because in the opening, everything is more closed up because there aren't that many chess pieces being traded off. Rooks are really good in open positions because they can travel really far. So we generally want to develop knights and bishops in the opening. Ladder checkmates happen in the endgame, not in the opening. It'd be really funny though if it happened in the opening. I just can't think of a way for that to happen. Anyway, we also want to castle early. So, why do we want to castle early? So the king is safe. That's true. Protect the king and get the rook out. Those are both good reasons. Yeah, so in general, castling early protects the king and gets the rook out. So in one move, you accomplish two things. So that's good. Okay, so that's all a review from last time. So something new we're going to learn this time is counting. And it's not like counting from 1 to 10 and so on. We're talking about counting material, counting chess material. So let's get into that. And counting is really important. It helps you make good decisions, helps you know what to trade and what not to trade. Very good thing. So, how to count material. Each piece is assigned a value. So, the pawn, it's the weakest piece, so it's only worth 1 point, right? And then we have the knight and the bishop. They're called minor pieces. They are worth 3 points. So knights are worth 3 points, bishops are worth 3 points. So basically, the more points a piece is worth, the more valuable it is. The rook is worth 5 points. The queen is worth 9. The king is infinite points because you don't want to lose your king. The king is really important. And as you can see, chess pieces with more points are more powerful, right? The queen is the most powerful piece and has the most number of points. The pawn is the weakest piece and has the least number of points. So, since a pawn is only worth 1 point and a knight is worth 3 points, if you have the chance to capture a knight with your pawn, you would generally want to do that because you win material. So let's practice how to count material. So in this position, I want you guys to count the number of pawns each side has. And you can type that in chat. Black does have one more pawn, but how many pawns? Yeah, black has 5, white has 4. So, who is up on material? Who is who has more material? Black. Yes. How much more material does black have? Yes, black has one more point in material because he has one more pawn than white has, and pawns are worth 1 point. So he has one more point. Generally, if you're up a lot of material, which means like if you have more material, if you're up a lot of material in a chess game, you're usually going to win. So having more material is good. So yeah, in this case, white only has 4 pawns, black has 5. So black is up 1 point. What about this position? Who is up in material and by how much? So this one's a little trickier. This one's a little trickier. Yeah, white is up material. Clearly white is up material since white has 4 pieces and black has 3. Now the question is how much white is up. And if we remember, knights and bishops, they're both worth 3 points. So white has one more bishop than black does. Then white is actually up 3 points since a bishop is worth 3 points. So it's better to be up a bishop than to be up a pawn, since you'll be up 3 points instead of one. So that wasn't that bad either. Still easy stuff. Okay, what about this one? Who's up material and by how much? White is up material by 5, yeah. Because white has 2 rooks and black only has 1 rook. And when you're counting material, the rook on a1 and the rook on a8, they cancel out each other since they're both worth 5 points. And that leaves us with the white rook on h1, which is worth 5 points. So white is up 5 points on material. Being up 5 points is really good. Usually if you're up 5 points, you're going to win. What about now? This one isn't that hard either. Who's up material and by how much? Yeah, black is up 9. Because white has only one lonely king, and black has a king and a queen. And so black has an extra queen, and the queen is worth 9 points. So black is up 9 points. So black is up 9 points. Okay, now it gets a little harder. Now it gets a little harder because we know in a real chess game, there's a lot more pieces than just this. So what about this? Let's try to count the material here. Who has more material? You want to count everything. So let's first start with counting our pawns. How many pawns does white have? Yeah, white has 7 pawns. How many pawns does black have? 5. Okay, so it seems like white is ahead on material for pawns. White has more pawns. But what about our minor pieces? Remember, minor pieces are bishops and knights. How many points does how many points are white's minor pieces worth? 6 is the correct answer because white's minor pieces are the 2 knights, on d2 and f3, and each knight is worth 3 points. So in total, the knights are worth 6 points. What about black? How many minor pieces are black's worth? I mean, how many points are black's minor pieces worth? Also 6, yeah. Because black's minor pieces are the 2 bishops, and each bishop is worth 3. And so, by simple math, 3 times 2 equals 6. Okay, what about rooks? How much is white's rook worth? 5. That's right. And black is also only having 1 rook. It's also worth 5, right? And what about the queens? 9 and 9. Okay, so we filled out this table on the right-hand side, and you see when the materials are equal, like for example, the minor pieces, when you're counting material, you can just cancel them out. So when you're counting material and you see each side's minor pieces are worth 6 points, you can just cancel them out and just ignore them. And same for rooks, they're worth the same, so you can ignore them. And the queens, they're worth the same, and you can ignore them. But the pawns, white has 2 more pawns than black. So white has 2 more points than black. And so the pawns are what really decides who's up on material in this position. And so in this case, how much is white up? How much material is white up? 2 points, yes. Because 7 minus 5 equals 2. Okay, that was a real game example because this position is from an actual game. That's good. What about this position? There's less points in this. There's less chess pieces on the board in this position, but this one's also a little tricky. So someone asked, "Can you still win when you are down material?" Yes, and that's usually pretty cool when you win when you're down material. And we'll get to that some other day. But today we're starting with learning how to count material. So in this position, how many pawns does white have? Well, white has 2 pawns, right? Black, how many pawns does black have? Black has 4. So in this case, black is up 2 points for pawns. But that's not all of the pieces. So let's look at the minor pieces. Remember, minor pieces are bishops and knights. How many points is white's minor piece worth? 3. Okay. What about black? 0. Yeah, that's the right answer. Because black doesn't have a minor piece. Okay. What about rooks? Each side has 1 rook, so each side gets 5 points. Queens, each side has 1 queen. Each side will get 9 points. Okay. So now, if you look at this, in total, who is up on material? And how much is white up on material? Yeah, the correct answer is 1 point. And in this case, we can say white is up a bishop for 2 pawns. Basically, that means a bishop in exchange for 2 pawns. So when we say white is up a bishop for 2 pawns, that's just a short way of saying white is up a bishop in exchange for 2 pawns. And that makes sense, right? Because white has a bishop, black does not have a bishop, and black has 2 more pawns. So the two pawns are in exchange for the bishop. And since bishops are worth 3 points and two pawns are worth 2 points, we see that white is actually up 1 point. And in this case, since the two colors don't have the exact same pieces, we call this a material imbalance. Which you don't really need to know that term, but just putting it out there. Okay, what about this position? Who's up material here? Well, let's first count our pawns. White has one pawn, right? Black has two. What about minor pieces? How many points is white's minor piece worth? 3. Yeah, 3 is 0. So white takes an early lead. But it's not over yet. It's not over. Oh, black has 3 pawns. Sorry about that. It's important to count. Okay. What about rooks? White has 1 rook, right? Okay, sorry about that. White has 1 rook. And it's worth 5 points. Black has 0 rooks. So it's worth 0. But now, what about queens? White has 0 queens, right? White has 0 queens. So there's a big fat 0 here for white. But black has 9. I mean, black has 1 queen and it's worth 9 points. So there's a big material imbalance here since it's rook and knight versus queen and 2 pawns. Who is up on material and by how much? Yeah, black is winning by 3 points. So when we're counting material, in this case, I would say that black is up a queen and 2 pawns for a rook and knight. Because black has 1 more queen and 2 more pawns, but white has 1 more rook and 1 more knight. So black is up a queen and 2 pawns for a rook and knight. And a queen and 2 pawns is worth 9 plus 2, which equals 11. Queen and 2 pawns is worth 11 points. A rook and knight is only worth 8. So black is up 11 minus 8, which equals 3 points. So, Quinn, stop spamming, please. Thanks. Yeah, I don't really like spamming. It's not a good idea. Anyway, moving on. So that was a lot of counting practice, a lot of math. You guys are probably tired of the math because the math is very boring, but that's okay because we're about to start the actual chess. So this lesson is mainly about tactics. And maybe some of you have heard what a tactic is. Some of you probably haven't as well. That's okay. What are tactics? Well, a tactic is a short sequence of moves. Okay. Tactics usually involve a threat. So I don't know if you guys have already covered what a threat is, but a threat is when you're threatening something with your chess pieces. Okay. Tactics can win material. They can even deliver checkmate, and they can also gain an advantage. And the fourth thing is very important as well. Tactics are cool because they show the power of the pieces. Very interesting stuff. Okay, so tactics are one of the more interesting things about chess. Tactics usually happen because of a lot of different things, but these are the 3 main things you want to be on the lookout for in order to spot tactics. So, tactics happen when there's an unprotected piece, right? When a piece, like even if it's your piece, if your piece or your opponent's piece is unprotected, there's a higher chance that a tactic is in the air. Also, if either side has a weak king, then there's a higher chance that there's a tactic. So a weak king means that the king does not have that many defenders around himself, and so the king is feeling very scared. And also, if pieces are arranged in a vulnerable way, if they're arranged in a bad way, well, that could mean a lot of different things, and I'm going to give you some examples on what that means. But first, steps for solving tactics. This is a good step-by-step way of solving tactics. You don't need to know, you don't need to do all of these steps in this order, but it is good to count material first, right? So that's why I talked about counting material in the beginning, because counting material is very important, because you need to know how to count material to do a tactic. And also, you want to look for forcing moves. So there are three types of forcing moves. And what a forcing move is it's a move that forces your opponent to do something. So you see, a check forces the opponent to get out of check. A capture is forcing since you're capturing something. And a threat is forcing your opponent to get out of the threat. So, three main things when you're looking for forcing moves, you want to consider all of the checks in the position, right? You want to consider all of the captures in the position. You want to consider all of the threats in the position. Okay. So, tactics are mainly about pattern recognition, which means if you do more, you will 100% get better. So, the more you do, the better you are at it. The more you do, the higher chance there is that you will be able to find a tactic in your real game. So, that's why professional chess players always say to work on tactics because tactics are extremely important in the game of chess because they are usually how you win a game. Because even if you're losing, if your opponent isn't tactically aware, you can still turn the tables and win. So, let's get started. So, I have some examples on tactics. So, this first example is here. So, step one for solving a tactic is to count the material. So, who is up on material and by how much in this position? And by the way, it actually kind of helps you, like ChessBase kind of helps you because if you look at where my mouse is, like my cursor is next to a bishop, and now it's next to two knights, which means white has a bishop for two knights. So that kind of helps to find out who's up on material and by how much. Okay, black is up by three, yes. Black is up by three because white has a bishop for two knights. That's 3 points against six. So black is up by 3 points. So if so we're playing with white in this position. If our opponent is up 3 points, that's usually bad. But in this case, we have a tactic. We can win material in this position, and we need to look for an unprotected piece in black's camp. Because remember, tactics happen or tactics are most likely to happen when there's an unprotected piece in a position. So, what are black's unprotected pieces? You can just say the square. There's a lot of them, a lot of unprotected pieces. Okay, so a5 is unprotected. That's true. What else? f5. Yeah, f5 is unprotected. d7 also is. Also d6. So now that we know our unprotected pieces, and we know our material, we can try to think about forcing moves. Remember, forcing moves are checks, captures, and threats. So, white only has one check in this position. What is white's check? Yeah, rook takes b7 check. That is white's only check in this position. Okay? What about white's captures? What are white's possible captures? Capturing the pawn is still possible. That counts as a capture. And another capture is queen takes e5. So those are white's captures. And now white can do a lot of threatening moves. So we don't need to consider all of them here. But seeing that the checks are, seeing that the unprotected pieces are the queen, knight, pawn, and pawn, now our only check is rook takes b7. What is white's best move in this position? Okay, so there's some correct answers here. Rook takes b7 check is the best move, but it's important to see why. So, there were a lot of unprotected pieces in this position, right? The queen, pawn, knight, and pawn. And there were two different captures. So you might ask, how can you figure out that this is the correct capture? And the answer is by doing a lot of tactics, because tactics are pattern recognition. So you want to do a lot of them, and then you'll be able to figure it out. So rook takes b7 check. King's in check, right? The king takes. All of a sudden now we take black's queen, which was unprotected. This is a very important tactical idea called the discovered attack, which I think you guys will learn in some other lesson. But okay, we see this queen is unprotected. This is our check, and it opens up white's queen to black's queen. And so rook takes b7 check. The king has to take, and we take the queen. And now white is up material. How much material is white up? I'm getting a lot of different answers. Math is hard, I guess. Yeah, 2 is the right answer. So we can either count all of the material on this board or look at here where we see white has the queen, bishop, and pawn against 2 knights and a rook. The queen, bishop, and pawn is worth 13 points if you add them up all together, and 2 knights and a rook is worth 11. So 13 is 2 more than 11, so white's up 2 points. Okay, so that was one of the more basic tactics, right? You're taking advantage of the unprotected piece. Like I said, when there's an unprotected piece, there's a higher likelihood that a tactic is in the air. You check the king and then take the queen. Okay, let's do another one. Actually, let's see, which one should I do? Yeah, let's do this one. So white moves, white to move, and first count the material. That's step one to solving a tactic. Who's up on material? Is anyone up on material in this position? It's actually equal material in this position. No one's up on material. The material is equal because both sides have 2 rooks, both sides have 2 bishops, both sides have 1 knight, and both sides have 6 pawns. So it's perfectly equal in material. So now that we know that, let's try to figure out white's best move. So in this case, you want to, since there's no checks in this position, you want to look for captures and threats. You want to see which of black's pieces is a little cramped up, is a little trapped. Okay, so first, let's consider all of the captures in this position. What can white capture? White can capture f7 and capture the bishop. One more thing it can capture. Yeah, it can also capture this pawn. Okay, well, white can also threaten something in this position. But to figure out how white wants to threaten black, you need to figure out which of black's pieces is a little trapped in this position that we can attack. Which of black's pieces do you think is a little unsafe? The king is rather safe in this position. The knight is unprotected. Unfortunately, we can't really get to his knight, though. The rook is pretty safe here, even though it's very passive, but it's safe. This rook is also passive. This bishop can't really be attacked. But what you want to figure out is that this rook is actually kind of trapped. The rook on the rook on f8 is kind of trapped. So what can you do to win material? Well, if you go rook e1 to e8, then he can capture your rook, and it's just a trade. Okay, someone got the right answer. So the right answer is bishop to e7. See, we're not capturing his bishop this time. We're going bishop to e7, attacking his rook. And his rook cannot move anywhere because if the rook moves here, that bishop will take it. Okay. And we want to trade bishop for rook because our bishop's only worth 3. His rook is worth 5. So if we take it, we earn 2 points in material. And that's good. So bishop e7, the first question to ask is, what if he takes it? Well, our next move is easy. We do pawn takes. And first we need to see that he cannot take again because our rook will take. Now we're off material because we have a knight for a pawn. But if he moves his rook away somewhere, now his rook escapes. But what can we do in this position? Yeah, we can promote. Pawn promotion. Amazing stuff. We can promote to a queen. He has to take. We can take it, and he takes. And finally, we take again. And in this position, we're up a whole rook for just one pawn, so we're up 4 points. So we see that in this tactic, we just win material. Bishop to e7, attacking this trapped rook. So the thing to look for here is that the rook is very cramped up, doesn't have very many places to go. You can move your bishop to e7 to attack it, and if he takes, all of a sudden your pawn's on the 7th rank, and you're threatening to promote. And so when the rook moves, you can promote and win a lot of material. So that was the point of that tactic. That one was a little harder because usually when bishops are staring off, one of them captures the other one. But in this case, you kind of just go into the bishop's face and just don't care. You just go bishop e7 right in his face. Kind of funny. Anyway, let's actually take a little break now. So we're doing, we're gonna do a little competition, a tactics competition. So hopefully all of you guys have a chess.com account because there's something really fun on chess.com. So how about you guys all go to chess.com? And once you're on chess.com, you see this this left hand bar of icons here. You want to click on, you want to hover over the third one, the one that looks like this. Then you go down to Puzzle Rush and click on Puzzle Rush. So puzzle is just another word for tactic. They're the same thing. Tactic and puzzle is the same thing. So once you're here, once you're on Puzzle Rush, select the 3-minute option and see how many puzzles you can solve. So Select the 3 minute option and then press play and see how many puzzles you can solve. So I'll be waiting for 3 minutes. You guys can post your scores in chat once you're done. Oh, someone's asking what we do. So you guys go on chess.com. Oh, if you don't have a membership and already did it, then I think you can just wait and try to do some puzzles while waiting. Actually, puzzles are also limited. Yeah, the problem with chess.com is that they really want the money. So you have to like pay for a diamond membership. Chess is better in that case because it's completely free. Both what both websites have their ups and downs. So if you don't know how to get to Puzzle Rush, it's to go to the third icon on the left that looks like an orange puzzle piece. You hover on that and then go down and click on Puzzle Rush. Then once you're there, you select the 3 minute option, then you click play. So chesskid.com is very different than chess.com. Chess.com has a lot more people. I can paste the link in chat if you guys can't get there. So just click the link, select the 3 minute option. Okay, that's fine if you can't get there. I'll just wait till 6:50 and then we'll go on from there. It's fine. Puzzle Rush is a really fun thing once you get good at it. Oh, I must be in a different time zone. I'm in Texas. So there could be a lot of reasons if it's not working. If you're not logged in, it won't work. And if you already did your daily Puzzle Rush, it also won't work. 47. Oh, you just completed 47 right now? 47 is really high. 19? That's pretty decent. 19. The goal is to get over 10, so 19 is a lot higher. 32 is pretty good. Okay, it's 650. So, if you guys did do the puzzle rush, you guys should be done. The 3 minutes should be up. 29, pretty decent. 16. Yeah, a lot of different scores. It's good to get over 10. Seems like most of you guys are getting over 10, and that's good. Okay, so my best in 3 minute puzzle rush is 60, as you guys can see here. Because I've done it a lot. So I'll do one now, just for fun. I'll do one now. So this one is gonna be a back rank checkmate. Most of the early ones are just checkmates. Hmm. They get a lot harder. They get a lot harder. Oh, made a mistake there. I do that a lot. Hmm, getting hard. Let's see if I could get over 50. Hmm, I don't know what this is. Oh, it is. Oh, another one wrong? That's okay. Oh, 51. Okay. That's okay. It's not my best. It's not too bad either. Anyway, that was just for fun. So that's what happens when you're good at tactics. You can get high scores on Puzzle Rush. And if you're good at tactics, Puzzle Rush gets really fun. So anyway, so I think we just did this puzzle. Let's look for another one. Okay, let's do this one. This one isn't that hard. So it's black to move. We want to count material. So who's up on material and by how much? Okay, white's up by one on material in this position because white's up a bishop and a pawn for a knight. So that's 4 points against three, up by 1 point. So let's look for some unprotected pieces. Well, if we do some thinking here, we realize almost everything is protected for white, except for his queen. His queen is unprotected. And that plays a very important role in this position. Because once again we see our queen lining up against his, but not quite because our rook is in the way. If our rook wasn't here, if our rook wasn't here, our queen could take his queen, and we would be winning. That gives you a hint on what the best move is. What is black's best move? Oh, someone already found it. Nice. Okay, it's another correct answer. So remember, if our rook wasn't on d3, our queen could take his queen. So we sack the rook with check, right? We sack the rook for just a pawn. We're attacking his king. The point is, if he takes the rook, we take his queen all of a sudden because we moved our rook away, right? Now our queen can take his queen. And that's important. And it was important that the queen on e2 was unprotected. That's why this tactic works. But after we sack our rook, white has another try. He can move out of check while protecting the queen at the same time. Very smart of white. But we can still win his queen with a similar idea in this position. So what should black play? Yeah, we have some correct answers. Rook to g1 check. Sacrificing the rook again. It's like we're wanting white to take the rook, even if he's not. Anyway, rook to g1 check. So what is the point of this move? Well, the king in this position is protecting his queen. So now if we take his queen, he will just take back. But we go rook g1 check. White's only legal move is to take. Now the queen is unprotected. The king was decoyed away. It was distracted by our rook. And now we take the full queen. And we just won a queen for a rook. And now we're up a queen for a rook, which is being up 4 points, which means we're completely winning. Well, that's how to win a chess game. These tactics are what brings you to a winning chess position. Tactics are what lets you win chess games. Very important stuff. Let's do one more. I might choose a harder one. Let's see. Okay, this one's hard. This one is really hard. This one is really, really hard, and it's a very weird position. So, let's look at this position. It is black to move. What is the material in this position? Who is up on material, and by how much? It's a lot of material to count. Yeah, black does have two queens. That's a good hint on who's up on material. Yeah, black has more material. How much? How much more material? Yeah, black's up by 9 points. Do you know why? Because black's up a queen. White has a queen, but black has two queens. So black is up 9 points. Everything else is the same. Both sides have one rook, both sides have one bishop, and both sides have 4 pawns. So in the end, black is up a full queen. 2 queens against 1. That's up 9 points. Now that we know that, we want to consider some forcing moves. Because even though white is down a whole queen, white still has a queen. And this queen and this bishop, they're forming what we call a battery. They're really strong together. And they're threatening checkmate. Queen g7 is checkmate. So is queen h8. Queen h8 is also checkmate because the bishop always defends the queen. The queen attacks the king. So white is threatening checkmate in 1. So we need to do something really quick. We need to make a forcing move in this position. So, what is black's first move? We can't waste any time in this position as black, or else he'll checkmate us. Yes, rook h1 check. That's a good forcing move. Checking the king. The queen is protecting the rook. So the king has to move here. Now what do we play? White is still threatening checkmate in 1. So someone said queen f8. That does defend against queen g7 checkmate. But white also has queen h8 checkmate. So white is very sneaky in this position. Very, very sneaky. So we still need to start giving checks. Someone said queen g4. The problem of that is that he will take the queen, and we haven't gotten enough compensation for the queen sack. Someone also said f6, but then he checks us. F6, queen d5 check. Now we're being checkmated because king h8, bishop f6 is checkmate. And king f8, queen f7 is checkmate. So, it's not f6. People are saying queen d3. Queen d3 also works. But after f3, now our queen cannot give a check except for queen f3. But unfortunately, he can just take. And if our rook checks, he can just take. So we're out of checks in this position. Fortunately for black, though, he can take the bishop, and now there's no checkmate, right? And then he takes back. Black can sack their queen, but they're still up a bishop. So that's one option, but there's an even better option, actually. Queen d3 is a good move, but there's an even better move. Any guesses on what's the better move? One person already got it, by the way. Queen b3 is also possible, but there's still f3. To give a hint, it is a check. It is a check. There's only so many possible checks in this position. We need to try to give a check. So our only checks here are either rook h3, queen h3, queen g4, queen d3, or queen b3. So we already figured out that queen g4, he can take the queen. And if queen h3, he can take the queen as well. And queen d3 or queen b3, there's f3. There's f3. So actually, the only check left to consider is rook takes h3. So we're sacking a rook again. But it's because we need to keep on checking the king, or else white will just checkmate us. There's a very smart idea in mind. So, first of all, the king cannot take because the rook is being protected, so he has to take with the pawn. Now, our next move is queen check. So that's why we sack the rook. Because in this position, the queen isn't doing anything on g1 because the pawn is blocking the queen. But we force his pawn up here, and now queen g1 is a check. And now the two queens are becoming really powerful. They're becoming really powerful. So the king to f3, we can take his pawn with that queen. And then after king e2, queen d3 is checkmate. The king simply cannot survive with the two queens. And after king e4, white is also getting checkmated in many different ways. For example, you can check his king here, and after king moves, then this is checkmate. Queen gg4 checkmate. So that's another good idea about queen g1 check. But the main thing, most important thing about this move, wait, sorry about that, let me get back, is what if he runs his king here? So the king is still escaping from the two queens. So black needs one more precise move to win the game. One more precise check. What can black play? Yeah, a lot of people are getting it. G5 check. G5 check. We're attacking the king again. This is why checks are really forcing because white cannot checkmate us because his king is under attack. He needs to move out of the check. So first of all, what if he goes king h5? Now what does black play? Black has a really good move in this position. Okay, someone got it right. Queen takes h3. The queen is zipping across the board, all the way from the back rank all the way to h3. It's a very sneaky piece. And queen takes h3 is checkmate. Because you're attacking the king. The king cannot take the pawn because that's being protected. That's checkmate. So, what if he takes our pawn after we give him a check? Now he's checking us. So what do we do? Yeah, queen g5. And then after king takes, now we're already winning because we're up a queen versus a rook. The point being that he doesn't have a queen anymore, so he can't checkmate us. So this is already considered winning. So this whole tactic was a really long tactic. From the very beginning all the way to the end, it was 6 moves long, which is really long. So that's why I thought this one was really hard. So remember, when you're under attack, when they're threatening checkmate in one, you can check your opponent and they won't have enough time to deliver checkmate. So in this case, we're giving them a check. We're sacking the rook to weaken white's king. Now our other queen can start attacking his king. After king h4, our pawn joins the attack. And finally, we get the queens traded off and our king is safe. and we're up a queen versus a rook, which is completely winning. So that was a really hard tactic, but yeah, still not too bad. Okay, so I went a little overtime today because it's already 7:11, but that's okay. So today we covered counting material. We covered that first because it's really important. You need to be able to count material in order to play a chess game, in order to do tactics. And then once we finished learning how to count material, then we started doing tactics. Tactics are the most important part of the game. You can win a game using a tactic. You can lose a game if your opponent finds a tactic. So tactics are really important. And one tip, one tip to give you guys is to do a lot of tactics, because the only way to get better at tactics is to do a lot of them. You guys, if you wanna maybe get like 50 in Puzzle Rush like I did, doing a lot of tactics will help. And it's like consistent tactical work. So a good website for doing a lot of tactics is chess.com, right? Chess.com. I know chesskid.com also has a lot of tactics. That's really important. Every chess website has a lot of tactics because tactics are really important. And I myself have done a ton of tactics, a huge amount of tactics. On chess.com, I've done over 50,000 tactics, which is a huge amount of tactics. That's how I am pretty good at tactics, because I've done so much. I recognize all the patterns and all that. And there's another website called chesstempo.com. That's for more serious improvers. Those tactics are of higher quality. And on chesstempo.com, I've done maybe 40,000 tactics. So in total, I've done like 90,000, almost 100,000 tactics in my life. And that's what it takes. That's what it takes to become an international master. A lot of tactics as well as other stuff, but it's mainly about the tactics. So, guys, that's all I have for today. I hope you enjoyed and learned something from the tactics that I've presented. And as a little bit of homework, you guys can just try doing some more Puzzle Rush on chess.com, doing some puzzles on chess.com. It's all very helpful. And other than that, I think the next class is in 2 weeks, probably. It's going to be someone else teaching. Other than that, that's all I have for today. Thank you guys for coming and have a great night.